The most important work of your life is the work you do within your soul. This is Home Improvement for the Soul.
Hello and welcome to Home Improvement for the Soul. I'm Maddie Cheers, and I am back again for our last podcast with Marianne Francisi, though I have a feeling you might be back a couple more times
Anytime.
in the future. And we are also happy to be back here at Paradise Studios in New York with our wonderful and amazing producer, Bobby Lacera. And we have actually been together and done podcasts with Bobby for the last 7 years, really,
Wow.
right? We've
Yeah.
almost since the studio opened.
Mm-hmm.
You have, and then I came in with, 3 different podcasts over the years. But we are really, really grateful for the studio, and Bobby has made some amazing improvements here. Talk about home improvement for the soul, because this place really is for the soul. I have to tell everybody, I tried doing these recordings on my own at home. Not fun, too much work, and probably doesn't sound so good. So I decided to come back to the studio because it does feel like home to me. It really does, for doing a podcast. And I think that for our topic today, Marianne and I really decided that we wanted to talk about grief. We touched on it a little bit with aging, and grieving is such a transformational process if you don't get stuck in it. If you allow it to flow through you, it has so much to teach you. Yes. So I'm going to turn it over to Marianne, who, as I've said in other episodes, is a wonderful creative arts therapist and mom and author and poet.
So I am feeling reminiscent being here, because that's a long time, almost 7 years.
It is.
And I'm thinking about it in
Another sacred number.
True, a cycle, right,
Right.
Maddie? I'm thinking it in terms of home improvement for the soul, the metaphor for that, right? And even this idea, because one of the things I go through is, why do podcasts, or why, I'm tired of hearing myself talking.
Right.
Like, who is listening anyway? Nobody cares. This kind of inner critic of just silence yourself, just enough, right? But if I look back, I started here in the studio with Surrogate Church, which was the story of when I was a surrogate and how sacred that was to me.
Beautiful podcast.
Right? Really, really special. And then when I had Spark Elementary, we did Call to the Principal Table.
Oh, love that.
Right,
With the kids.
with the children. Then I did a podcast with the amazing Lori on Tug of Heart, which
Lori
was
Cordova.
Yes,
right.
the loss of her son when he had passed, and that was all about really rising out of grief. You and I have done Wisdom Window.
Yep.
And you have done Sacred Democracy. So it is in reviewing that work, I see it so much as this process of finding voice.
Right.
And finding the words for things that are hard to explain. And finding the words in grief especially is difficult, right? It is so silencing. But once we begin to find the words, we begin to find the bridge to connection, or if we find the story. And in order to do that, you do need the container. So why here? And why not in our homes? Nowadays, anybody could record on their computer.
Anything. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Why not do it on Zoom? Why do we need the container? Why do we need the home? And so that's what I'm thinking about as I'm sitting here with you.
Yeah.
It's like very comforting.
Exactly. It's the safe place.
Safe place.
Safe place. And that is something that I was talking about this on my Facebook page the other day, the Women's Oneness Project. I do a thing on Sunday mornings, as you know, called Poetry and Prayers.
Beautiful.
And there is this idea that a lot of our trauma comes from feeling unsafe in childhood. And there is also a lot, if we look out in the world, there are so many people that are trying to feel safe. So safety for a human being, feeling like you are in a safe place, and especially for a child, is ultimately important. And I think what happens when a friend or a parent dies is there is this immediate sense of a lack of safety and even a lack of home.
Yes, absolutely. And no matter how old you are, it feels a little less safe in the world.
Yep.
And I think that's probably true of anyone that we love that we lose.
Right.
Even a pet, anyone, there is a sense of, I'm not as secure as I was. Part of my safe attachment to moving through this walk is gone. And there's a vulnerability. So one of the ways to do that is to immediately to protect, to armor up.
Right.
Shut it all down, put on the armor, just kind of get quiet about it. And in order to begin to really allow the grief to become present in whatever way it surfaces, it's not always words, there needs to be a safe place. There needs to be the home. So, and there is nothing that is more connected to the soul than grieving.
That's right. And everybody will go through it.
Yes.
Everybody. It is one of those things that does connect us as human beings. In the same way laughter connects us on the other end of the scale. The joy of being together, being with a child, celebrating. But grief connects us all.
Now, when we came into the studio today, again, synchronistic in a way, Bobby had made a lot of beautiful improvements, right? And we were talking to him about it, and he said he had lost a friend, and he was in deep shutdown about it. Just didn't move for 3, 4, 5 days. And then something kind of like rose in him, pushed him, like motivated him to say, I have to channel this into doing something good.
Right.
And so he came into the studio and started his improvements and like worked with it from dawn through the night, all day, every day. And then there was something different. Something had transformed, and some of the grief had been worked out through the physical labor. So that home improvement, your metaphor, is a labor.
Right.
There is work attached to this, and there are tools involved, and there are creative choices that are made. And it is really being able to channel. I have to go back to that word, channel the unbearable, the unspeakable into something that makes something a little better. And for Bobby's better, here at the studio, it's holding more diverse type of programming. It's holding more people, but the safety, I'm thinking about that. What is the safety? Because the safety is the same I felt 7 years ago. And so that to me is connected to Bobby's devotion. To this mission of bringing people's voices forward.
Right. And I think that grief can actually inform you of what your mission is. And especially death. I mean, I think death is one of the biggest teachers, whether you're the one doing the dying, or it's somebody else in your life who has passed on that was very meaningful for you, you go through that sense of not feeling safe till you find your own safe place, or you create it, or it gives you an awareness of, you know what? I did always want to sing. I did always want to paint. I did always want to dance. And you find a way of expressing yourself, because you realize that the grief connects us, the death connects us, the joy and the creativity connects us. What makes us most human in the world is that idea that we are all creators. This I love from every spirituality I know of. We all have, to quote Kabbalah, that spark of light in us. And that spark of light is our piece of the Creator. And the Creator is eternal. And when we're saying prayers to the Creator, we touch that eternity. When we have that grief, we pray the hardest sometimes. Or some of us abandon prayer because we think the Creator's out to get us. And then we find our way back. So all that journeying around grief and the soul and the spark of light happens because of our humanity and our connection to each other and the Creator. I mean, funerals, there is no greater time. You know, they talk about gallows humor. I know when my mother passed, it was very devastating, of course, and she'd been through a long illness. But when we were sitting Shiva, which is a wonderful ritual because you get to hang out with your whole family and your whole friends, and they get to do things for you. And there's all the storytelling. There's the laughter and the tears. There's the whole gamut of human emotion in 7 days. Yes. The Haudenosaunee do it in 10 days. There's that number 10 again we talked about last week.
Yes.
Those sacred numbers. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason that those things connect us as human beings and become sacred to us. So I think that when we are looking at that grieving process, when we're sitting here looking at how beautiful the studio is now, how different it is, to be able to sit across the table from each other instead of next to each other and see each other as we're doing this podcast. Brilliant. Absolutely wonderful. And gives a different tone.
It is a beautiful kind of, if we think about, this is the third segment that we're doing together on this idea of aging.
Right.
Gracefully and with gratitude. And this piece of the grieving, right? To be able to hold space. And what Bobby did was to take this energy of grieving and sort of create space
right.
for others to gather. So for us as aging women, right, we are, in fact, anyone who is aging is doing the work of grieving.
True.
Right? Of what is now gone. It is what brings me to my knees all the time, is my sentimentality. Like, I'm like, oh, those days, it was just like yesterday. And the tears of, how did time go? And time is different now. But to be able to go through that, to go into deeper time.
Right.
Time where you know that, right, there's a limit to how long I'm going to be here.
That's right.
And I am devoting the rest of my time to creating a space that holds others' voices, where people are working it out
Right.
to figure their truest expression, whether it's the playing of music or talking a podcast or doing a show. It is this creating space.
Right.
And that, again, is just very, like, isn't that so much more honorable to think about? Like,
Yeah.
I'm in the phase of life where I am devoted to making this gathering
Right.
space.
Right.
And that my energy imprint, my signature is here.
Yep.
It's here. Even if they redecorate the whole space, that energy of devotion
will always be here.
So it is, what am I devoted to in this lifetime? And if I am in fact devoted to love and to feeling as authentically humanly connected as I can be, then grief is part of that.
Yes.
That's a natural part. And if we expand out into the land, then we're always seeing that process, and we're not judging it, right?
No, not at all. That's the thing that you really get rid of when you go through the grieving process. And the aging process is you stop judging. You stop judging yourself. You stop judging others. If I always love that funny meme that somebody put up a long time ago that said non-judgment day is coming. It comes around 60.
It's coming.
It's going to come for all of you guys. You're all going to be out there at being, whoa, let me be less judgmental of other people because I don't want to look in the mirror and judge myself. And what I'm talking about when I'm saying look in the mirror and judge myself, because we do look in the mirror and go, oh, I look old, I look younger, I look prettier, I look uglier, I look, bleh. Who wants to do that anymore?
No more.
No more judging of yourself, either inside or outside. It's more a journey of what can I give to the world? I mean, when Kabbalah talks about this, Native people talk about this, we look to nature as our teacher. What does nature teach us? Generosity and harmony. That's what nature teaches. Nature gives up its life for us. It gives up its life for each other. I just watched the osprey that lives across the creek from us go in and take a fish, right? So the fish gave its life to the osprey. The osprey makes more osprey. There's a symbiotic relationship in all of nature. All of nature requires a give and a take. Yes. All of nature requires and is about reciprocity. And when you get to be an elder, your reciprocity is to give back the stories, the lessons that you have learned now that there are more years behind you than there are in front of you. And when you can face that, you have an awful lot to give.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. And I think also because as you're not carrying needing to be anything other than who you are in the moment, right?
Exactly.
Just being with who you're with, or even with yourself, then you can sink into this deeper time where I feel like there is connection between worlds.
Yes.
Right?
The veil is thinning. Yeah.
Exactly. So there is this spiritual thread that suddenly you have access to.
Right.
If you open your heart to it and are interested in it. Well, not everybody is or wants to. That's okay.
But I think that's something you hit on with being here. So Bobby is a very religious person.
True.
He is a very open-hearted person. Mm-hmm. And I think when we look at what makes the most ceremonial spaces deeply touching, it's the person or people that bring that heart wisdom to that space. I remember as a little girl going to I wasn't that little, I shouldn't say that. I was in 10th grade. And in 10th grade, I had this wonderful teacher who would take us every weekend from synagogue, a bunch of little Jewish kids, not little. I always think of it as little because now I'm 70 almost.
Everybody's little.
Right. Everybody's little. So when we were in 10th grade, we went to visit a different church every week. And I remember distinctly going into the big gigantic Catholic church. I don't remember what it's called in Baltimore, but it's very monolithic. And there's this amazing feeling going into that church of like this connection to the mysterious and the spiritual, and it's mystical. It's a very mystical experience, even just seeing it from the outside. And then I remember going into the Black Baptist church downtown, which was a much more grounded human experience. And the singing and the way they welcomed us, these these little Jewish kids from the suburbs into this beautiful, small Black Baptist church, packed to the rafters with the singing and the preaching and the loving and the standing up and the dancing and all connecting together. All of it connecting. Both spaces totally different and totally sacred in their own way.
So what makes it sacred in the mundane, right? How do you let your mundane space become sacred?
Right.
And it really is a very personal expression of your devotion.
Right.
So maybe that really is part of this work of understanding, like, what is the expression of my devotion in the mundane? How does it look? Because that's what it's got to be infused with. That is the essence and the energy. And once we know our own and can really feel it, like, I know there are times where I'm in my house and I'm like, it doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm not, it's not me. Mm-hmm. There needs to be some clearing, cleaning,
right,
something, freshening. The air needs to move through it. And then when it's there, it's there. You feel it. It's right. And so it's being in touch with the aliveness.
Yep.
Right? So we're talking about grief, right? But within grief, there can be an essence of aliveness.
Exactly.
And it could hold you, and it could move, and it can be part of just the sense of, wow, even while you are broken and in pain and uncomfortable, there can still be a sense of aliveness in it.
Right. And you can bring that to everything.
Yeah.
You can bring that. I mean, we always talk about finding your inner artist, and we've made some recommendations in the past shows, but you can bring it to anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can bring it to the way you clean your house.
Yes, true. There's the mundane.
You clear the clutter. There's the mundane.
Yes.
Or you can decide, I'm going to do what Winston Churchill did. I'm going to just try painting.
Yes.
Just for the fun of it. Mm-hmm. Don't, without the judgment, without the expectation, and all of that creating for whatever spiritual reason is behind that helps you overcome the grief. Maybe because you realize that the person you're grieving for, whatever that loss is, it's made you a more connected, bigger person. It's put you more in touch with your soul.
Yes, and with the other world.
And the other world,
right? It's
absolutely.
more than just this Monday.
It's
right?
much more. There's much more out there.
Maddie says at 70.
I know, really.
She knows.
I'm
Maddie
telling
knows.
you. Lift in the veil, kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to close today with this poem. So those of you that do know me, I know I'm a little over time here, but those of you that do know me well, and those that do not, I do talk to God.
You do.
So I do through writing poetry. So it started with drawing mandalas, circular pictures, and then 2 lines of poetry would come to me, and I just write it. It just writes itself. And it is divine dictation, it's been called. It's been called divine downloads. I personally think it's an oracle speaking. So I wanted to read this poem called Once Upon a Time. And the whole idea was, we had talked about the idea of the power of that, just that term, once upon a time, reconnects you to your childhood. If you were ever part of the culture that did the once upon a time stories. So I didn't really do a drawing with this one. I actually just said once upon a time, and here's what happened. The wind rustles and the wheel spins. It whispers of the air and fins, of God's connection to us all, requesting us to heed the call. If I have missed my moment here, another comes to shift the fear. We all hear God in our own way. We all have hearts that need to say, I am a part of all we are. All that's near and all that's far, continuing around the globe and never ever getting old. I'm old is just for matter's gate. There's so much more, don't hesitate to see the sparkling magic here that sings your soul away from fear. The ego's game is always lost. For after all, too high's the cost. The living of humanity goes far beyond the world we see. And those who cannot feel its heat will find they do not have a seat at the banquet laid for all who love to hear Creator's call. The ones who rise above and see the beauty that we are the we. So near the we and yet so far, if fear is guiding where you are. If cornered in your practiced voice, you'll find you do not have a choice. Let go of all you've come to know, of what is right and what is show. The knowing that you're seeking now is truly that which teaches how to love beyond the gate of fear into the realm of always clear, where light that shines into your heart is surely teaching you the art of being love and being true. And once upon a time you knew that all is light and all is love. So take my hand and rise above.
Oh, beautiful, Maddie.
Amazing.
I love that line, the banquet laid for all.
Yes.
Let's go to a big banquet.
Let's go to a big banquet.
Let's get to that table.
Yes.
I love it. It's beautiful.
I know. Thank you, God. Thank you. I feel so, I just love doing this.
It's beautiful.
And it was through art that I found, through doing a mandala.
Yeah. And the rhythm and hearing it out loud is just so incredibly soothing and safe. It becomes a safe space.
It does become
Your
a safe
words
space.
and the rhythm of them. So keep reading them.
Oh, thank you. So thank you, Marianne, for
you're
being with
welcome.
us for these 3 podcasts. If you want to get in touch with me, it's Maddie, Maddi, at womensoneness.com. Send me any comments, send me any questions. And actually, I can write poetry that answers questions. So if you have a question and you want to see if the oracle has an answer for you, please send your question in, Maddie, Maddi, at womensoneness.com. I wish you all great joy, great happiness, and love. Love
Yes.
to all of you. Thank you so much for being with us. So this week's poem, very brief, but very beautiful. Into the soul of all beyond, into the place where she is fond of sitting in the light of love, of being like the whitest dove, of knowing that the black of heart are not so useless, yet are smart, and clever in the mind's deceit, and practiced in the ways to creep inside the heart of lazy souls who disregard the loving goals of keeping unity in mind, of keeping action that is kind. At the forefront of their will, at the time and place of still, a stillness that's to hear the voice so they can make the proper choice to seek the higher dance divine and seek to find a different kind of motive for their passions play and seek to build a truer way, including one, including all. It is the way. Now heed the call. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful, wonderful, grateful week, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you for joining us for Home Improvement for the Soul. If you'd like more information, please go to womensoneness.com or maddiecheers.com. That's womensoneness.com or maddiecheers.com. See you on the next episode.